morning, dear people of the internet, and welcome to this video about the worst online space in existence. If you just thought, well, it couldn't be that bad on Reddit, because that's what we were talking about, you're terribly wrong. That was an example of me overreacting and then gaslighting you. Because even though there are places on Reddit that are absolute hellholes, I think there are a lot of good things on Reddit too, even wonderful things sometimes. And then I told you were wrong about something you were right about. I think everyone can find something on Reddit that they like, so that means it's not objectively absolutely bad. Today I have some situations from the subreddit r/AmIOverreacting for you, and a genuinely fun situation from another subreddit, and we're going to read those and then decide whether these people are actually overreacting or not, because that is what they are asking of us. Before we do that, I have a short public service announcement. I'm trying to gather 1,000 subscribers, dare I say, before the end of the year. It might help me avoid college, and also I would welcome you here if you like videos about silly little internet things, and sometimes less silly little internet things, media things in general. It's fun and games, so that's what we do here. We talk about that, so please subscribe if you like that, and watch my videos if you like them, of course. I would highly appreciate that. Now let's get into Reddit. I think we need to define what overreacting is first, because judging someone without having any parameters is just mean. According to the website of the Cambridge Dictionary, overreacting means to react in an extreme, especially an angry or frightened way. This means that everything I'm going to say today is still an opinion, because what might look extreme to me might not look extreme to you, and vice versa. But I love gathering some facts on the internet and then blasting my opinion on the internet about all of these facts, so that's what we're going to do today. The first situation I have for you is about band-aids, believe it or not. The original poster posted this picture with the title, "Am I overreacting? Band-aid wasn't what I was expecting." And this picture looks absolutely diabolical. I think we can agree that this is not how band-aids are supposed to work. It does just look like this one is cut off wrong, and probably the rest of the box is entirely fine, but we don't know that. But it's not what you're paid for. And imagine getting out a band-aid like this when you just had a paper cut on your finger, which is already annoying, and then it's even more annoying. You're bleeding all over the place, and it's just bad. There's also a caption by the picture, and it reads, "Opened a box of band-aids to cover a small cut. When I removed the wrapper, this is what I got. Then I opened 8 more in a row like that." Excuse me, there were 8 more in a row like that. That makes it a lot worse. I sent Band-Aid an email to let them know about the issue with a photo. Their response was, "I am sorry to hear that some of the bandages in your box didn't have the padding in the middle as expected." Right, because how silly of me to expect the pad to go over the cut, not around it. Yeah, that's my bad. I must have grabbed the vampire bite kit or the staple wound box at the store. Why are they gaslighting me? How hard is it to say, "Oh, looks like you got a bad batch. Sorry about that." This sounds like the people at Band-Aid thought the expectations of the buyer were too much for them. I kind of would expect a big company like this to be like, "Oh, we are sorry, let us send you a new box." On the other hand, I might not have sent a message myself, because I think a margin of error is allowed to exist, and maybe to me it would be too much of an effort to send a message, but when I was writing this video I hadn't read the line that there were 8 more of these in the box, so if it was just 1 I probably wouldn't send an email, but maybe if there were 8 I would. And I think that sending an email is not overreacting at all, in any case, even if it were just 1, but it's not overreacting. And the response from the Band-Aid people was very unprofessional, I think. Another question we have here, is it gaslighting when someone tells you basically, "I'm sorry your expectations were too high"? Because the top comment under this post was, "Holy shit, this is not gaslighting. You have got to stop throwing these words around." To answer that, we need to turn to the Cambridge Dictionary again. The definition of gaslighting is the action of tricking or controlling someone by making them believe things that are not true, especially by suggesting that they may be mentally ill. I don't think that Band-Aid was suggesting that OP was mentally ill, so that is great at least. You can make the argument that insinuating that the expectation was the problem instead of the Band-Aid is sort of gaslighting, because technically that is tricking someone into believing something that is not true. I think gaslighting should refer to serious effort to do so. I would call the message from the Band-Aid people an unconscious, sad effort to gaslighting. Even though I don't actually think that OP is overreacting, I do think this post belongs on r/mildly infuriating instead of r/AmIOverreacting, because that's a place for these kinds of things that are actually funny when you think about them, but are not funny in the moment. The next post we need to talk about is, "Am I overreacting for being upset that my coworker told me that I am autistic? And since I'm autistic, I think that I am the authority of everything autistic." That is a joke, but maybe it helps. Who knows? I work in a small business that has only a handful of employees, and I started in September. One of the employees is my mom, and I've known the others and the owner for a couple of years before starting work here, so there's a way higher level of familiarity between us than usual for a new job. Part of the job includes ordering supplies for our customer orders, and while putting an order in today, I needed to use a placeholder item code. The code itself is written on a note on the wall, but I didn't include include a letter at the beginning to tell the program which supplier the item code refers to. Sorry, this is stupid hard to describe. Just know that in previous jobs I had in this industry, it's standard need the letter. I put the code in without the letter because the note didn't have it and it didn't work. So then I asked my coworker if I needed the letter. She said yes, and I joked I wish the note said that. After this, she said yeah, because you're autistic, and laughed. Well, okay, if anything, that's not funny at all. I was too shocked to say anything. To give some context, this coworker is technically my superior, though we don't have a very strong hierarchy or anything. I know she has a strong feeling that she's autistic, though we've never spoken about it, and she's on ADHD medication and sees a therapist. This is all to say, I don't think her comment was meant as cruelly if it had come from someone anti-mental health and neurotypical. But it was still crazy to say that to me, right? I'm not diagnosed with anything. I have several friends on the spectrum, and I'm actually a very passionate advocate for neurodiversity and mental health. But what grounds did she have to essentially diagnose me in the workplace in front of my mom? Like, I don't care if you think that about me, but keep it to yourself. Admittedly, I haven't been my best since starting here. I had to leave a job I really liked, same industry as this job, in an amazing HCOL city because my unicorn level housing situation came to an end and the pay wasn't enough to rent because of my student loans. What is unicorn level housing? It sounds fun. I don't think it's actually relevant here. I left all my old co-workers and local friends right as I felt like we were starting to get close. On top of that, I moved back in with my parents at 28, which never feels good. And then shortly after moving back, the pet I had since high school got seriously sick. I had to give him around-the-clock care for a month straight, and he still died last month. I'm still struggling. In addition, the same coworker doesn't seem to trust me to do my job well. This place has some different methods and standards, but I've worked this industry for 3 years, and my old job wanted to keep me so badly that they tried to offer me a management position so I could get a small raise, though it wasn't enough to afford the cost of living. I know I still have plenty to learn, but I'm so on edge with being second-guessed and treated like my industry standard techniques are inherently wrong somehow. This is why I feel like maybe I'm overreacting, like maybe what she said isn't that out of pocket coming from her context, but I still feel like it was. I hate being put in a box and I hate people making assumptions about me. So maybe I'm just feeling this more because I'm already on the struggle bus. Before we judge this entire situation, we need to unpack the probably unconscious but still ableist language in this post. First, OP uses the words crazy and stupid. Crazy originally meant something along the lines of diseased, impaired, flawed, and of unsound mind. Stupid originally meant something among the lines of mentally slow and lacking ordinary activity of mind. I know these words have gotten newer meanings that are not as historically loaded because these words were used in medical contexts, but that doesn't erase the original meanings of these words. There are other words you can use. Wild is a good replacement for the word crazy, and very hard or insensibly hard would have worked instead of stupid hard, and it would have had the same effect in this context. I think that learning to remove ableist language from your mental dictionary is important to be respectful, especially when you call yourself an advocate for neurodivergent people and mental health. OP also calls their autistic friends on the spectrum, which is a euphemism for autism. There are a million different spectrums, probably even more, but we have gotten to the point that on the spectrum or the spectrum means autism, as if to say it's not as bad because it is a spectrum, but please just say autistic because that's supposed to be a morally neutral description. I know it isn't, but we have to get to that point by actually using the word. Speaking of morality, I've heard so many times to not use my autism as an excuse when I was advocating for my actual needs. Yet this person is trying to excuse the comment of their possibly autistic coworker by using the possible autism of this coworker, and to excuse their own actions by saying they have autistic friends, and therefore supposedly knows how autism works. I think OP wasn't overreacting by being upset about the comment the coworker made, because it was an inappropriate comment. However, it doesn't sound like they did address this with the coworker, and like they just ran to Reddit instead. It is true that autistic people are more likely to make socially inappropriate comments, but that doesn't mean that we cannot learn about that. It is not ableist to address an autistic person about their socially inappropriate behavior when it's reasonable to do so, like in this case, especially when it makes you uncomfortable and it is applied to you. If I'm just stimming with my hands and you're like, I don't like that you're moving your hands because people don't do that, that's ableist to say. But if I say, you look ugly out of nowhere for no reason, or in general because that's just mean, you can say, hey, that's not appropriate to say and it makes me feel bad. Then I can learn that and not do that again. So that's different. Then it applies to you. When I'm just moving my fingers like this, it doesn't apply to you. I do think this post is an overreaction because Reddit is not going to solve your problems before you even talk to the person it applies to. This seems to be a misconception on Reddit because there are a lot of these posts where people just communicate their issues to Reddit instead of the person they have an issue with. Speaking of communication, a lot of these Am I Overreacting posts are about romantic relationships, so we need to tackle one of those to get a vibe of this subreddit. This one is called Am I Overreacting? That I stained my boyfriend's sweatshirt and then blocked him. Which is a wild title. It sounds very mean to me, but let's read it before judging the situation, of course. My boyfriend, 24 male, and I, 21 female, have been seeing each other for about 2 years and had a memorable day. Basically, I was sitting behind him on a Vespa two-wheeler and had bought this liquid to blow bubbles. It was red-colored soapy water, and I wasn't aware that the bubbles would contain the color as well. Some of them landed on his sweatshirt along with the soapy water, leaving behind red drop stains, like 4 to 5 maybe. I told him immediately, saying, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, but the bubbles stained your sweatshirt. I'm not sure that's actually safe. Shouldn't you hold on to the person in front of you if you're riding on the back of a motorcycle or something like that? And also, blowing bubbles in traffic doesn't sound really safe either. Immediately, I was kind of dreading his reaction because he can be quite sentimental about his things as well as cleanliness. I respect that, and I can be quite clumsy. He got really annoyed and stopped the vehicle and dropped me off at an undecided point and said, please just Uber from here, and left. We were supposed to go to his place and I was supposed to Uber from in front of his house. Well, I'm an adult and it isn't a big deal. I can take care of myself. I was supposed to do the same thing in front of his house. Being left standing there like that, it was very hurtful. I felt like I was a child being punished for a mistake. While I was in the Uber and I was on my way home, I received texts which were among the lines of, whatever you did wasn't good. It was my most favorite sweatshirt and I have a lot of memories associated with it. I hate you. Then when I reached home, he deleted those texts and called to ask if I reached home safely. At this point, I was very hurt and spoke to him a bit rudely because I didn't want to. He called back again and said, I'm sorry, I called you again. I'm sorry that you stained my sweatshirt. Very passive-aggressively, kind of insinuating that I never really accept my mistakes and ultimately pretend to be a victim I'm not supposed to be. I blocked him after he said this. He has blocked me as well. I realized that I might have ruined his sweatshirt and that it's his favorite. It wasn't my intention to, and I feel bad about it, but I felt his reaction from him was unwarranted. Am I wrong in thinking so? Should I have apologized instead of blocking him? I would also like to mention that there have been several such circumstances where I have felt like his reaction was unwarranted and extreme. Eventually, after he calms down, he comes around, but I don't think he ever accepts or understands how hurtful it was, leaving me in a lot of guilt or walking on eggshells around him whenever I make a mistake, like I start dreading his reaction. It makes me question if I'm genuinely so selfish, have a victim mindset, that I find a way to blame him somehow even though I'm at fault, or are his reactions genuinely unwarranted or extreme? Traffic safety aside, this relationship sounds very toxic. On one hand, we have someone who is constantly walking on eggshells, yet inviting this guy back into her life. And on the other hand, we have someone who is overreacting constantly and yeeting someone off his scooter, like not literally throwing, but you know, for staining his sweater. Instead, he could have just thought that there are a million ways to remove stains from clothes. Instead of using effective communication skills, these people just block each other. Now, of course, the guy's the one overreacting here and the woman wasn't, but I don't think blocking someone like this is something you do when you're ready for a healthy relationship. Like, it isn't very respectful to the other person and it isn't very respectful to yourself. Blocking people is like slamming the door for any communication in this day and age, or it should be. At least that's the message that it sends. Which is great when someone is harassing you, but not so great when you intend to open the door to communication again. Blocking should be a last resort and not some way of conveying that you're mad and not ready to talk. So I think it's time that these people break up, take some time to heal, and hopefully learn some effective communication skills. Luckily, it seems like they will be breaking up. OP has made an edit to the post that shows that, and it seems like the people of Reddit made her realize some things. Not all of the reacting or overreacting happens on r/AmIOverreacting. It is time to ask ourselves if overreacting can be a positive thing. I think so, and I will explain it to you with a story called the Chive Saga. For the Chive Saga, we have to go to the subreddit called r/KitchenConfidential. This subreddit was kind of dead until someone made a post called Cutting a Cup of Chives Every Day Until Reddit Tells Me They Are Perfect. To me, this sounds like a kind of boring but funny premise, but for some reason I'm fully invested in this story. And with me, a big part of the Redditors. On day 32 of the Chive Saga, something called Chivegate happened, prompted by this post by the person who is now commonly known as the Chive Lord. Hey everyone, I would just like to come out and apologize for posting the same pile of chives twice. I was having car problems yesterday and was unable to get and cut chives, and rather than being upfront and honest with you guys, I chose to repost chives. I didn't want to give you guys another chiveless day. I see now that it would have been better to just be honest and say no chives rather than try and lie. This also goes against the whole point of the post. I would like to thank all of you for holding me accountable for my actions. I will be subjecting myself to a Reddit decided punishment. The most upvoted punishment that is reasonable will be my punishment. So nothing illegal, nothing expensive please, but cutting extra chives or maybe something I have to do for the rest of my posts. I again again apologize and will ensure this never happens again. In the comments, a lot of people expressed that they felt betrayed. Of course, in a jokey kind of way, because if there's a place to overreact as a joke, it's right here. Somewhere before Chivegate happened, this cat called Chives entered the saga and kind of became the mascot of the entire thing, which is important because the punishment the Redditors came up with was for Chivelord to cut his chives and then shape them into the shape of Chives the cat. And he did, which was wonderful. A little after that, this ad popped up on Reddit, showing us that Chivelord had reached a new level of fame. Some people were worried that Chivelord wouldn't get any compensation for the situation, because according to him, the people of Philadelphia hadn't reached out to him yet, but luckily the mods had contacted Philadelphia about this and they came back with this, so maybe Chivelord just had overseen the message. This led to business people talking about the Chive saga on LinkedIn. Reddit is tricky and often backfires for advertisers. My advice is not to touch Reddit unless you really understand the subreddit culture and the community, so your advertising doesn't make Redditors mad and turn on your brand. For the last 37 days, a chef has posted top chives in a cook chef staff for subreddit until Reddit says they're perfect. The whole subreddit has been very invested in the Chive guy's knife skills. Today, Philadelphia Cream Cheese targeted subscribers of the subreddit with this ad. Note, they didn't overlay the content, that would get them flamed, but I did so you could see a post and the ad. I hope Kraft Heinz does an influencer partnership with the chef, or at least sends him some cream cheese. It'd make a good day 2 story. Well, that hasn't happened, but it's great that they are talking about it on LinkedIn even. It's wonderful they are inspired by this chive cutting guy. And next to Redditors just having fun with this, it inspired an entire new subreddit called r/quest for perfection, where people can set out to gain new skills and get their skills judged by Reddit. So that's also a wonderful reaction. Now, I'm very inclined to say, but it's just a guy cutting chives on Reddit, and these reactions are also just kind of over the top. But I don't think that matters, because what matters is that people are having fun and having a good time with all of this, and that's the most important thing. Therefore, overreacting can be good. Today we have seen that overreacting negatively can cause people to be mad, annoyed, and to feel like they have to walk on eggshells all the time. That is all bad, and it can often be avoided by just good, effective communication and internal reflection. We've also learned today that overreacting in a positive way can lead to a positive chain reaction, and just general fun. So, not all overreacting is bad. I would love to hear your experiences and opinions about people overreacting in the comments. I think people tend to overreact when the emotions come first and then the logic comes later, and that's totally okay. But some people really need to work on that. Anyhow, thank you for watching. If you like my little video, please press the wonderful shiny like and subscribe buttons, and then I will see you next time. Ciao!